and you need to defend yourself all the time. As you may heard, I file a few lawsuits, and I'm in the court now because they accuse me of doing stuff that I never did in my life, and they wrote lies, and I will not allow that. I will fight till the end because I don't want that they damage my reputation and my name.
The View is a victim of the sunk cost fallacy. You know, how can you now speak the truth when for years you've been telling lie after lie after lie? Now you're carrying this big bag of rocks around you because it's too harmful for their ego to admit that we really were dishonest. And they could be honest. All they would have to say is, look, we hate Trump so much. We were willing to lie about Joe Biden because we felt he was preferable. We thought our lying and our cover-up was on your behalf. Just say that. You're still scum, but at least you're honest scum.
A $500 million nonsensical lawsuit from First Lady Melania Trump just turned daytime TV upside down. And Greg Gutfeld isn't letting it slide. With razor-sharp wit and relentless sarcasm, he tears into the polished facade of Sunny Hostin, exposing the hollow virtue signaling and overplayed outrage. This roast isn't just entertaining, it's a comedic demolition of elite hypocrisy. As the courtroom drama heats up, Gutfeld serves the punchlines cold. One thing's clear, the talk show spotlight just became a legal interrogation lamp.
I think she hates him.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Okay, so we can all agree on that. That's a given. I also think that she wants to take him out. She does not want to be the first lady anymore.
They agree with you.
She doesn't want to be the first lady. She's destroyed the Rose Garden. Who hates Christmas? Melania Trump hates Christmas. She doesn't want to decorate for Christmas. She doesn't want anything to do with him. She doesn't want to sleep in the same room with him. She can't tolerate him.
Allegedly.
And she does.
Yeah, how do you know all this?
Yeah, I don't know.
You don't know all this.
People have to wonder, where does Sunny Hostin get her opinions?
Yeah.
Like you said, and it's obviously from her husband. She has to tell her what to say on The View, because without it, she's got nothing up there. She's not very bright. But the problem with her is that she went full racist. She injected skin color into a fairly generic behavior seen in all spouses.
Greg Gutfeld walked into his studio that night like a man who had just found a golden ticket. But it wasn't for a chocolate factory. It was for a roast that had practically written itself. Sunny Hostin had just been hit with a $500 million nonsensical lawsuit from none other than Melania Trump, the current First Lady of the United States. And Gutfeld looked like a kid on Christmas morning. He didn't need a monologue writer for this one. The entire situation was a slow-pitch softball just begging to be launched into the comedic stratosphere.
Usually reserved, Melania Trump is furious. The woman who wants to be First Lady is taking on several media outlets that she says printed false reports about her personal life. Now Melania is threatening to sue. Les Trent has the latest.
Hostin's obsession with race gets thrown back in her face. Today's video comes to us from Sunny Hostin. Sounds like a town. We're in Sunny Hostin. She was on PBS's Finding Your Roots, a show dedicated to researching celebrity ancestry. For context, Sunny is a staunch supporter of reparations and has made a fortune spewing nonsense about white privilege and racial justice.
He opened with that devilish grin, the kind that tells you he's about to take a blowtorch to someone's public persona and toast it to a perfect golden crisp. Gutfeld saw the absurdity of it all. Sunny, perched high on her moral mountain on daytime television, had finally said one thing too many. And Melania, often painted as silent and subdued, had responded not with words but with a $500 million, 0-cents lawsuit that hit like a freight train through a Hallmark set.
Well, turns out she's not as oppressed as she claims she is. She's actually the descendant of slave owners from Europe. Here's how she took the news. Roll it.
Wow. I'm a little bit in shock. I just always thought of myself as Puerto Rican, half Puerto Rican. I didn't think I was, my family was originally from Spain and slaveholders.
Greg didn't hold back. He described Sunny as the type of commentator who confuses conviction with volume, someone who thinks that raising your voice and cutting off your co-host somehow makes you right. Gutfeld delighted in exposing how her self-righteous crusade against the Trumps had finally backfired in spectacular fashion. He called it karma in designer heels, walking right into a courtroom with a vengeance.
So how are you feeling, my friend?
I think it's actually pretty interesting that my husband and I have shared roots.
Yeah.
So I do appreciate that. And I think it's great for our children to know this information. I guess it's a fact of life that this is how some people made their living, on the backs of others.
He painted a vivid picture of Sunny scrambling behind the scenes, trying to pretend the lawsuit was no big deal, even as her team was probably Googling, can sass be used as a legal defense? Gutfeld joked that her lawyers were likely flipping through old transcripts of The View, trying to figure out which inflammatory moment triggered the First Lady's legal news.
Oh, that's like, so she's still like one of them, you know, she's one of them. Yeah, but I give him extra money. She's so sweet, that Sunny. Paul, do you catch The View very often? Is it on your DVR?
Well, it's the view into what? Domestic hell? I mean, what exactly is it a view into? And who came up with the names, if you think about it?
Yeah.
The irony, of course, was the best part. For years, Sunny had branded herself as the moral anchor of her daytime soapbox, positioning herself as the voice of reason in a sea of chaos. But now, chaos had her mailing address. Gutfeld couldn't help but point out that the woman who preached accountability was suddenly allergic to it. The same person who dissected every Trump headline with surgical snark was now the subject of a headline that made her look like she'd tripped over her own moral pedestal. And now, the silent one had roared, and done it in a way that not only got Sunny's attention, but put half of Hollywood on notice. If words have consequences, then Sunny had just discovered what a $500 million consequence feels like.
Fact of life. Interesting change of tune. For more, we go to our chief Sunny Hostin correspondent for a reaction.
Then came the real roast. Gutfeld tore into the culture that elevated Sunny in the first place, a world where you can make a career out of trashing conservatives with no pushback, where personal attacks are dressed up as truth-telling, and where applause from a like-minded audience convinces you you're invincible. But Melania's lawsuit? That was a wrecking ball through the illusion of immunity. He speculated about the damage control, the producers, the PR teams, the fake smiles on air, the subtle attempts to spin the lawsuit into a badge of honor. But Gutfeld knew the truth. Sunny, the self-anointed champion of women's dignity and class, had spent years tearing down Melania like she was auditioning for a political roast battle. But the second Melania punched back with a law, not a tweet, suddenly the narrative changed. Now Sunny would want sympathy. Now she'd paint herself as the victim. But Greg laughed that off. The victim narrative doesn't work when you've spent years playing the aggressor.
But maybe one day when we finally strip away this phony race war, it will finally expose this elite mentality. And we'll find out Sunny is just like Marie Antoinette, except she says, "Let me eat cake."
Pointed out how Melania, far from the caricature the media always tried to draw, had done something bold, deliberate, and undeniably powerful.
She didn't yell.
She didn't storm a set. She didn't go on a rant. She sued. Big time. And Gutfeld grinned, because that kind of calm, calculated response was exactly the kind of move Sunny never saw coming. She thought she was throwing punches in an empty ring, but it turns out Melania was standing in the shadows with a legal right hook. Greg went after the media next. He mocked the predictable coverage. He also knew what Sunny's next move would be. She'd try to cry censorship, claim she was standing up to power. But Gutfeld wasn't buying it. He reminded viewers that it's not courage to insult someone who never fights back. It's arrogance. And it's not speaking truth to power when the only thing being said is packaged contempt for easy applause.
It's about the view. It's like, it's become like a medical hospital that displays human misfailure. Like, it's like here, let's look at this political oddity. Ah! You know, it's like, it really is like the left-wing equivalent of a carnival sideshow, except instead of bearded ladies and fat clowns and two-headed cows. Well, let me rephrase that.
Gutfeld poked fun at how Sunny's show would handle it on air. The hushed tones, the passive-aggressive monologues, maybe even a somber piano outro to make the lawsuit seem like a national crisis. But behind the scenes, Gutfeld imagined producers panicking, lawyers scrambling, and Sunny practicing her "I'm the real victim here" face in the mirror. He kept hammering away at how predictable the fallout would be. Activists would rally around Sunny, pretending this was about protecting journalism. The usual suspects would flood social media with hashtags. But Greg pointed out the obvious. This wasn't journalism. This was targeted character assassination dressed up as commentary. And now the target had fired back, with a vengeance and a very expensive legal team. Gutfeld wondered aloud how long Sunny could keep up the performance. Because at some point, the cameras stop rolling, the applause dies down, and you're left in a quiet room with a legal summons and a cold realization that being loud doesn't make you right. For years, Sunny thrived on outrage. But now, outrage had a price tag. And it wasn't one of those symbolic lawsuits. This was real. $500 million real.
Then I blame women. White women in particular.
About time.
Right, Sunny?
I think that women, white women in particular, want to protect the patriarchy here because it's to their benefit. Yeah. They want to make sure that their husbands do well. They want to make sure that their sons do well. They want to make sure that their children do well. And they want to make sure that they do well. Most of the women in some of these studies are married white women, and they do fall in line with what their husbands are doing, how their husbands are voting.
Take that, people who say she's racist. You forget that she's also sexist.
Gutfeld didn't just roast Sunny. He dismantled the entire act. The righteous indignation, the exaggerated facial expressions, the smug certainty. He said it wasn't passion, it was performance, a daytime soap opera hiding behind political relevance. And now that the curtain had been pulled back, all that was left was someone who finally found out what accountability feels like when it comes wrapped in a legal brief from the East Wing. He finished by comparing Melania's move to a masterstroke. While critics were busy dismissing her, mocking her accent, and painting her as nothing more than a former model, Melania was studying the battlefield. She waited. She watched. And then she struck, not with noise, but with precision. It was elegance in litigation form. And that contrast, Gutfeld said, is what made the roast so perfect. Because when all was said and done, Sunny Hostin had been taken down not by a shouting match, not by a tweet, but by the very thing she never expected: consequences. Melania Trump had flipped the script, and Greg Gutfeld, standing center stage with a grin on his face and a metaphorical flamethrower in hand, was more than happy to read it aloud, one searing punchline at a time.
You get toiletries, you could get fire logs, you know those big bounty towels you don't want to carry?
Those from Costco.
Somebody else goes.
Fire logs? She had to tell the audience that she tips big because even she knows she sounds insufferable.
And just when you thought Greg was done, he doubled back with even sharper precision, like a chef realizing the roast could use just a little more heat. He circled back to Sunny's signature style, those dramatic pauses, the faux intellectual tone, the layered smugness wrapped in academic jargon. Gutfeld mocked how she always managed to take a one-sentence question and stretch it into a 5-minute morality lecture, as if she were delivering a TED Talk at a brunch buffet. Now, those same theatrics were being filtered through legal anxiety. Greg laughed, imagining Sunny sitting backstage with her legal team, trying to workshop a new angle: how to spin being sued by the First Lady into an act of defiance rather than a masterclass in recklessness. But Gutfeld pointed out what everyone already knew: just because you say something with a smile doesn't mean it isn't venom. And now, the venom had a price tag. Greg grinned as he described what Melania must have been thinking when she finally said, "Enough." Not in an outburst. Not with a press conference.
This dame probably virtue signals on the toilet. But that's not the point here. While everybody else was trying to figure out how to survive as the government told us that breathing in public could kill us, Sunny was lolling around in her big house clicking on pictures of arugula while mixing Cocoa Puffs into her Haagen-Dazs.
But with calm deliberation and a legal document that landed like a missile on the set of a daytime chat show, it wasn't just power. It was grace, wielded like a sword. He even imagined how Sunny might try to recover, maybe with a strategic public appearance or a sit-down interview in soft lighting, discussing the emotional toll of being sued. Gutfeld scoffed at the idea, saying, "The real emotional toll was realizing that the applause you counted on doesn't work in court, that the performative sympathy from your co-hosts doesn't count as a defense strategy, that when the lights dim and the camera pans out, all that's left is a woman who went too far and finally met someone willing to push back." Greg concluded with a smirk, noting that this wasn't just a lawsuit, it was a cultural reset, a reminder that even the loudest voices can be held accountable. And as the music rolled and the segment ended, he left one thought lingering in the air. Sometimes, justice doesn't shout.